Hey, ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry, episode 119. As always, I'm joined by Dom.
What in tarnation?
Oh, God. And Jordan.
Jared, so glad to have you back on the show. And let me just say that I'm also really glad that we've had such great guests on this show, including, the voice actor behind characters like Tukwai Togen on Easy Allies Box Peak, episode 3. Check it out if you haven't already.
Nice. I love Box Peak. It's really good. So let's talk about what we're going to be playing, or what we have been playing, rather. Played some more Magic the Gathering Arena, nothing surprising there. I've put in a bunch of time into Red Dead Redemption 2. Obviously, last week I finished the Spidey DLC, which we finally have a release date for Turf Wars. The second part comes out November 20th, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, since I have AC Odyssey out of the way, I'll eventually get back to it. But for the time being, been playing Red Dead. I think I'm about 30 hours in. The way you can tell how many hours you're in on Xbox is because of the achievement system on the back end, where you can compare achievements with other friends. It actually tracks your playtime. So even though Rockstar didn't put that in the game, you can actually see how much time you've played for, which is really dope. The game says I'm like 30-some% in. I'm doing the thing where I do a lot of the side missions and the Strangers and Freaks missions, and then moving on to the main missions. It's a great game. I really, really enjoy it, but I do have more gripes than I thought I would have with it. So I'll get those out of the way, air some grievances. One, though I'm not having trouble with the game necessarily with the controls, I will say it does a poor job at actually teaching players controls. It tells you controls, but it doesn't teach you, if that makes sense. And I think that's just been a problem with the last couple of Rockstar games. GTA had that problem as well. They have a tendency to tell you the controls, but they don't do a very good job at putting things in place to teach them to you. They tell them to you. I just have felt through the whole game they haven't done a really good job at that. The second thing, this is probably the most broken game I've played all year.
Jeez.
I've had about 6 or 7 missions where something happens in the game world that impedes my progress, where like a character who's in a scripted like animation, like riding a horse somewhere, just stops, or something happens where I can't progress the mission, so I have to restart the entire mission. I've had my Xbox go to the home menu like 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
So like quitting out of the game. It's the most broken game.
It's so weird how certain people have those issues. I was listening to Greg and Tim on the Kind of Funny Games cast, and they were even playing on the same console, both PS4 Pro, for the Spidey DLC. Tim had lots of issues. Greg didn't have any. I didn't have any with that DLC. And then now here with Red Dead, I on PS4 Pro haven't had issues, but you've had ton on Xbox One. It's weird how that shit works, man. And it can, and like I said, you can have the same console and really have just a very different experience. It's almost the luck of the draw, kind of.
I do think the base consoles are more prone to it, though, just because.
Absolutely.
So I have a bunch of friends who also own base Xboxes, and they're experiencing all the issues as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they've had the game freeze on them or have issues. That being said, the game is fantastic. I'm loving it. I kind of want to refrain from actual story stuff. But in terms of like the side missions and Strangers and Freaks, there's a lot of variety there. There's some really cool characters. I kind of even don't want to mention them, Jordan or Dom, because I don't want to ruin them for you guys.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't want to kill all you people, Dutch. Just you.
But I
Are
will
you enjoying the story, Jared?
The main narrative is really good. For me, I think it does a thing that obviously I didn't beat Witcher 3, but I played a hefty amount of it. It does the side quest thing really good, where you're invested in these characters and you actually want to see through these side missions, and they're just not like busy work.
Yeah.
I will say the fishing is fantastic. It's like one of the best fishing games I've ever played. It's one of the best hunting games I've ever played. Just in those respective things, like
You obviously didn't play Big Bucks Hunter 2002 at the local arcade in Michigan.
Funny enough, I would get those games almost every year with like Madden and stuff. I would always get the new Cabela's hunting
Jared's
games.
like, I'm yearly Cabela. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Which is funny because like I live in a household that isn't like anti-hunting, but it's just not that type of family. You know what I mean? But the places I live, especially from the hometown I'm from, is very much like a hunting town. with people who love going and doing that and drawing deer and stuff. But yeah, I'm loving the game. It's hard because like I said, I don't want to spoil stuff, so I don't want to. When we're when we're playing the game, we'll definitely get into the narrative and stuff like that. But I'm enjoying it. Camp members, I want to say Sadie and Charles are probably my favorites so far. Jordan, I'm in chapter 3. I don't know how far you are in.
Yeah, I think we're right around the same spot.
Yeah.
From what you've mentioned thus far.
Yeah, so Sadie is really cool. I like how she gets involved, and she definitely is a twist on the type of character you'd expect to see in a Western game. Charles is like, he's a Native American, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on with him. Like, there's a mission early on where you have to deal with buffalo and how that whole thing shook up in the American Southwest. Obviously, if you know your history, you know what happened there. So there's some really interesting tidbits there.
I definitely think this is the best non-cutscene, like super important dialogue. Just anytime there's stuff on the side or it's just like chatter, this is the best game I think I've ever played as far as that stuff goes.
Yeah, it's really good. Another complaint I have is that the horse, like you riding your horse, I think is worse in this game than like AC Odyssey, which I just recently played. And let me finish my statement real quick. So animation wise and like actually riding the horse is unlike any other game, right? That's like top tier. The problem I have with it is the mechanics in the terms of the way the horse interacts with the environment is like too overly realistic to some extent. Like you'll trip over a rock and your horse will tumble down and you'll fly off your horse. There was, as realistic as this game is supposed to be, there was a point where I got off my horse near a rail track and I was walking to go do something and the horse just started moseying around and it moseyed over the train track and got hit by a train and died. Yeah. So that was weird.
You gotta like hitch him up and yeah, you gotta keep him away from predator. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're designing a game where the horse gets scared of animals and stuff when you're near them and bucks, you would think that a loud train would also do that same thing.
These sound like the ramblings
definitely.
of a negligent pet owner, Jared.
It's not a pet.
A horse is a pet, right?
Well, I think for these guys, they don't treat them as pets. They treat them as tools, I think.
Yeah. I was going to say, I've been thinking a lot. You just pinpointed this exact subject I've been thinking a lot about, Jared, playing this game, which is, and I'm sure there's some fancy ludonarrative dissonance-esque term for this thing in gaming, but this line that is kind of an unspoken thing in game development, and I really don't hear people talking about it much, but the line between realism and, I wouldn't say necessarily fantasy. I don't, a lot of people talk about games being escapism. That's not necessarily why I play video games. But anyways, I think that this line between how realistic do you want to make something, like you really don't want to be doing this guy's taxes, Arthur Morgan. You don't want to be having to like balance his fucking checkbook or whatever.
I mean, he's an outlaw, right?
Back then.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you shave his beard, you got to keep his beard clean, you got to keep him clean, the horse clean. And so I think I'm excited to see the conversations in the years to come that are brought about from this game, because Rockstar has really played with that line as far as, like, do you want to have to mess with all this stuff? A lot of people are going to be like Jared and say, fuck no. And there's definitely stuff in the game that I'm personally like, all right, I think this is a little too much. I do hate having to worry like way more than I did during The Witcher 3 about how big of a little bump my horse is going to go over, if he's going to break his fucking ankle or whatever. There's plenty of stuff like that. But at the same time, there's stuff that draws me further into the world because I feel like it's so well done and it is realistic. Another term that mixes into this conversation is hyper-realism, which a lot of games are. This game, for example, is a perfect visual example of that, because when you look at it, it's not supposed to look exactly real, but it is supposed to look photorealistic in many ways. So it's really hyper-realism at the end of the day, and plenty of other games like that, Metal Gear Solid 5 or even The Witcher 3, though it takes place in fantasy setting. And so it all, like I said, draws into playing with this line. And yeah, I definitely agree with Jared that they didn't always nail it as far as this game goes, and I'm just glad, like I said, to see that conversation being brought up, and we'll see how other games handle it in the future.
Yeah, and it's tough for me because we talked about Spider-Man, and obviously I had gripes with that game too. It wasn't perfect, but to me that game was also an open world game, but it was tighter than Red Dead, obviously because it wasn't going towards the same scope.
Absolutely.
And I think in a lot of ways that benefited Spider-Man, and I think that caused it to not have as many, and I hate to say issues, it's just like when you're Rockstar and you're trying to do all of these things that are possibly hyper realistic or changing the way you interpret game mechanics, you're going to have some things that don't click with people or seem a little too much. Like one of the things that I wouldn't say is an issue, it's just a nuisance, is so in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, to run with a horse, you just push forward. And we actually had the conversation, Jordan, of like, well, yeah, there's only one speed. The thing is, I'll take that one speed on the horse over constantly having to mash A. And people are like, oh, well, use the cinematic camera. You know what I mean? And I've had times where I'm using the cinematic mode and my horse runs into another horse that's on the trail and falls over and collapses and I fall. So it's like, that's not a solution then. You know what I mean?
Well, and he's really not at full speed if you're in cinematic mode.
Exactly,
So you're at like 75% at best. So, yeah, there's lots of things like this, and I don't think that there's proper excuses like cinematic mode or whatever. They take the animation for skinning an animal is a little bit longer than something like Far Cry or Assassin's Creed, for example, but
I love it personally.
But it's still not as long as, I don't have a problem with it, but it's still not as long as actually skinning a fucking animal would take, because you don't want to sit there and do that. And so this line that I'm talking about goes off in all different tiny little directions, and Spider-Man definitely kept back from that line in the sense that I really like how, it's realistic. Peter has to do things other than being Spider-Man. He has to get over to his internship job thing with Otto Octavius. And
you're also Spider-Man in that game, so
right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a whole other conversation because you are in a fantasy setting, but there's still levels of realism because they are human beings. It's not like an alien world or whatever.
It is science fiction, at least, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Not full fantasy.
Isn't it weird? No. Actually, that's a good point, Dom, because I think about this often. Like, really, most comic books are science fiction if you think about it. Like, even if it's not Guardians of the fucking Galaxy. Like, Spider-Man is a sci-fi fucking comic because a radioactive spider that got worked on in a science lab bit him, But anyways, there's still that level of realism. You're still putting your hands on the telescope. You're still figuring out these puzzles, but it isn't beating you over the head with it. Although it is making you really stop and smell that air in between main story missions and the DLC especially. But yeah, it's that's that point I just made. It's every game has this, especially if it's not fucking Tetris or Valkyria Chronicles that I'm playing. Like, if it is kind of trying to be in the realm of realism, hyper or otherwise, it's going to have to deal with these things, and it's not an easy line to play with.
Well, and I think it's interesting because God of War and Spider-Man, I think, are games that, as we're nearing this generation, they take everything we've learned and know and like kind of try to perfect it, right? They work in the constraints of what they know they can turn up to 11. Whereas I think Red Dead is going like, okay, we're at the end of the generation, let's push it to its limits. And I think that's
like
where
an experimental album,
Yeah.
It's your favorite band, but it's them kind of fucking around in the studio.
And I think that's like the difference in all. I think all three of those games could easily be Game of the Year. I think there's a solid argument for all three of them. I mean, I haven't even played God of War, but I understand the excellence of that game, and I can't wait to actually play it to have my own opinion on it. But I think they handle this point in the generation differently. And like I said, Red Dead Redemption 2 may end up being my Game of the Year. I mean, the problems it has don't outweigh like all the amazing nuances in this game and the characters. Yeah. The one thing I will say, I think the facial animations aren't as good as I wanted them to be, and I'm not saying they're bad necessarily, but like Spider-Man for me was surprising with how good the facial animations were in that game. I don't think anybody expected their facial animations to be that good. So like going from that, where it's like obviously a smaller game in terms of scope, and then going to Red Dead, it's like, okay, well that's one of the sacrifices they made is they didn't spend as much time on facial animations, but like this world and the amount of creatures. When you play this game, Dom, it is insane how realistic these environments feel. and it's not just like, oh, there's different amounts of shrubbery and all this stuff. It feels alive. It is insane.
That terrain. I talked about that terrain.
Yeah, it is great. That's everything I've played. I don't want to go too long. I want to hear what you guys have been playing so we can get through the podcast. Dom, I assumed you hadn't played Red Dead yet. Is that still the case?
Yes. Let me tell you what I have played, though. You guys.
God of War 2 on the PlayStation 2.
God of War 3, I did wrap that up. It's a good to great game. It was fun. It was a cool game. But what I'm getting excited about and a little, twitchy and agitated about is Hyper Light Drifter.
Oh, you dove in.
A little.
Yeah.
I went in head first, waist deep, but with my legs in the air. So yeah, you can picture that. This is an excellent game. I can't even control my. This is a great game. I knew the music was really good from the little bit of gameplay I watched before getting it, and it's even better. It's even better when you're playing the game. It's hard to explain, but yeah, Disaster Piece, whatever they are, band or composers, I don't know, but it's cool, man. It's fantastic.
Electronic producer, yeah.
Yeah, and so Jared, I know Jordan played it, but Jared, I don't know if you have any familiarity with it, but what this does, and I can tell what it's doing, and for most people, probably a lot of people, they're going to start it, and then, after an hour, be like, well, screw this, I'm done. This is stupid. Because it does exactly what, Dark Souls and Bloodborne do when you first start, which is you're completely, without much direction, and it's extremely difficult, and, you don't necessarily know what resources do what. And even more so in this case, because there's no words, there's just pictures. There's no, dialogue or anything. It's just, you go to an NPC and he just shows you pictures. Like, you go to a shopkeeper, and it's like, oh, you want this? Then, you need to bring me, these 3 yellow squares. And you're like, well, what the hell are those? It's really bizarre way of communicating.
It's very esoteric in the way that the characters communicate and the way the game communicates to you, even way more so than the kind of Souls format. And I was just going to say real quick to point on your, you bringing up Bloodborne and Dark Souls. I think, people talk a lot about Souls clones with, Salt and Sanctuary, what have you. I think that this is the closest thing to a top-down Bloodborne clone.
Yeah.
And it is. I don't think that they nail it on every front, but it's still a really solid, great game that I would highly recommend to anybody who's into that format.
Yeah, so far there's something a little off on the controls. Maybe it's a Switch problem, but there's something where the left analog stick and the dash button just don't always do exactly what I think it just doesn't feel
you, man, that
quite
rhythm,
refined.
It just never felt right. That rhythm,
just something's a little off. But
the way it's kind of almost like Jared, you were talking about with having to constantly be digging your spurs into your horse in Red Dead. It's it just never quite. It's a little clunky, It's never smooth.
But what I can tell it's doing, and I haven't even hit that point. So the point when everyone first plays Dark Souls or they first play Bloodborne, and that first few hours where you're just getting your ass kicked and you're just discouraged. I can tell that's what's happening to me right now. That's what this game is doing. I don't care if that's unoriginal or not. It's fantastic. But I can tell as soon as I get this that first upgrade, beat that first boss, that you're gonna get rewarded in a certain way, and the gameplay is gonna unlock a little bit more. I can just feel it coming. But yeah, that's what it does. That I think is most like Bloodborne, aside from just the difficulty in and of itself, and the controls and the way you dash. But it's different than like a Cuphead, which is just pretty much difficult all the way through. You get better at it, but there's not that initial first hump that you cross and then you feel great the rest of the way, even though it's still difficult. But yeah, so far Hyper Light Drifter is awesome. Last thing, the art style is unbelievably cool. If you've seen a picture of the game, you can see that. Yeah, and it only gets cooler as you're playing through.
Well,
yeah.
That's the crazy thing is a game. When you talk about how great a game is, it's not just one piece of it. And I think with Hyper Light Drifter, the music is so excellent and the aesthetic is so excellent that the gameplay, though it doesn't necessarily hit all cylinders like you guys said, just being that close to being really good makes it a great game because all of its parts lift it up. I'm interested to play it. I don't know how soon I'll get to it, but it definitely is on my list of games I need to pick up. And your endorsement on it after Jordan's endorsement when he played it, it's definitely like staying on that list of games I need to get to.
Yeah, and I mean it's it's like $20, so like look for a sale or
Yep.
on like Xbox Live Gold, free gamer type of thing maybe one day.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you guys know how much I, for some reason, love buying games a second time on the Switch. And if I had really fallen in love with the gameplay of this game, which is the only part that I'm not totally head over heels for, then I definitely would be playing this on Switch.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm sure it's fucking awesome on Switch. I don't think what you were talking about earlier is a Switch control problem. As you know, I'm plenty quick to judge the control problems on Switch, but I think this is actually the gameplay what you're talking about, though.
Because you played it on PS4, right, Jordan?
Yes, I did.
And you still had that weird issue where it just didn't phone sync.
I think I might have bounced back and forth between Vita. I think it's cross save.
But the big thing is it wasn't on Switch, so you still had the weirdness with the controls, and it wasn't exclusive to Switch.
Before Switch was ever a twinkle in Reggie Fils-Aimé's eye.
Yeah.
It's like the gameplay is fantastic, but it's just something about the analog stick, and maybe if Jordan is saying the same kind of thing, like it's just not quite as precise as I feel like it should be. It's hard to explain until like you go to dash onto like an island over a gap or something, and like you just went a little bit more to the left than you thought he was gonna based on where you pushed the fucking stick.
Yeah.
It's just the tiniest bit too, like the tiniest lack of calibration. And that's all it is, but it's enough to notice.
Are you having a decent time chaining your dashes together? Is that an issue at all for you?
No, I haven't gotten the ability to like chain them quicker.
Link them?
I know that's a thing because I've seen like someone playing and they like go around that circle.
At this point. You can't.
Yeah, there's just a pause, a short like a half a second pause between each one, but it feels like an hour. So I know
it's weird, man. It's not just like X X X X. It's like X X X X. It's kind of like a roller coaster ramping type momentum.
Okay.
Rhythm thing.
I gotta figure that out.
I never could quite get the hang of it, man. I never could.
Yeah. So far it's fantastic. I'm gonna keep playing it.
It's cool you beat God of War 3, so you got that out of the way, and now you're going through Hyperlight. I really hope you pick up Red Dead, not necessarily like soon, but God, this game is crazy, man. Like it's,
I know. I gotta do it.
Real quick, Dom, on God of War 3, was there anything that was illuminated for you about the God of War 4 story that you were like, oh, now I get this thing?
No.
I mean, there's a big thing like on Kratos' body at the end of the game.
No, that I missed. What was
Jared,
it?
do you care?
I'll take off my headphones and I can see you. So just like lift up your hand when you're done.
We'll talk about it later, Jordan. Let's hang it, pin it.
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay. Jordan, what have you been playing?
So I have also been playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and yeah, I think I kind of jumped in and mixed around with you, Jared. I think that I don't have a whole lot new to say. However, I will mention that, like Witcher, and then leveling up even further, games like Bloodborne or Souls, this is sort of a hardcore game in some senses of the word, and it is going to require more of you than just petty dabbling, if that's what you're looking for in a game, because I know a lot of people love doing that with GTA, just fucking around. And you could do this with Red Dead Redemption 2, but I just don't think you'll end up overall enjoying your time spent as much as if you just really sink into this game. Dom, I hate to disappoint you. I have no idea when I'm going to beat this story, man. I mean, you're going to be pooping your pants, in 2 years when I finally beat this story. I'm just saying, it's going to take me a long time to play this game, and I think that a lot of people are enjoying it this way. I think it's fucking insane. I was just thinking this the other day. That probably a week to 10 days after release, I was watching on the internet, and there were no spoiler casts. That I was seeing from the regular channels that I'm, and these are the big guys in gaming. So like, I do not see spoiler casts. I do not see of course the guy that reviewed it for the site or whatever. But most people are really not rushing through this game. I mean, people beat Spider-Man the second day it came out or whatever. That's fine.
Holy shit.
If you want to play games like that. But I just love the fact that really, generally, everyone seems to be taking this game slow because they kind of got into it, hopefully, and realized that Rockstar was like, hey guys, like, fucking come with us on this ride and just like hang out. Don't even worry about getting to the destination. You know, let's go on this journey and just have fun. So I'm really enjoying that, and I'll just also say on the Red Dead note that I think the whole outlaw thing, I wish that, you know, there were more games where you truly actually were being a bad guy, not this whole like kill the person or don't kill the person decision and you go down the Paragon or Renegade path. I mean, those are cool, but they are, in today's gaming world, antiquated. It was antiquated when infamous Second Son did it in 2014, and so I do think that this is a more nuanced system in that sense, and I'm really appreciating that, and also appreciating the fact that I don't have to be, you know, the Boy Scout in blue type of good guy that I am in so many video games, especially of this kind. So, yeah, just appreciating this game more and more as time passes and I sink further into it. So, there's that. And
real quick, to your point, so I'm playing it as the Boy Scout. That being said,
really?
though, it's not clear. It's not always clear what the right decision is in a situation, which I love. And
good, yeah.
Being an outlaw, you can be a good person as an outlaw, but there's still going to be some like shitty stuff you have to do just to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that, Jared. I love that. I think one of the themes that they are pushing, overarching themes in this game, is just because you're a person who does bad things, does that mean you're a bad person? Or you could change out words. Just because you're a person who does shitty or fucked up things, are you a shitty or fucked up person? Just plain and simple, you know? Or is it a more mixed and nuanced, like, yeah, we stole from this guy, but then this pregnant lady was trying to, like, she needed groceries, we fixed her up, you know? Shit is mixed in there, and I like that gray area that they're playing with.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. That's all. I just wanted to add that.
Sorry?
I was just going to say, did you play anything else?
Yeah, so I really didn't touch my Switch this week. Thought about Valkyria and stuff like that, but like I said, I really didn't mess with it, and didn't hop to any of my other consoles really. So it's funny because like I know I'm gonna get back to Bravely Default at some point, but basically I just keep it charging on my my 3DS charging on this table near my chair, and just like open it up, and then I'm basically just upgrading my hometown so that it allows me to buy better items in the shops as I go throughout my adventure. And so I'm just like sitting here. They want you to kind of do like this street pass, possibly even microtransaction-y type of deal where you could pay for more workers or get more workers through street pass or something. I don't fucking know. But they give you one worker to start with, and so if you're doing one worker, then to upgrade this one shop, it's like 48 fucking hours or something. But I'm like, well, I'll get to the game when I get to the game, so 48 hours is nothing to me, and so I just like save it as I go along, and so there's that. I think I mentioned finishing some of the series that I had been talking about. I did want to bring up Channel Zero Season 4. It was like a Halloween event where they did 6 episode. They do 6 episode seasons twice a year, and there's now 4 seasons. So there's 24 episodes, I guess. And it's a cool, you know, like they're kind of loosely adapting these creepypastas from the internet. And it's definitely a great horror show, which there are still, unfortunately, a bit of a shortage of, even though I will say Netflix especially this season brought it through hard. But this was another solid season. I do think they've been falling apart in the end, which kind of sucks, but you know, they're of course really cool concepts in the beginning because they're from interesting creepypastas that people already know and love. But yeah, it's another solid season, I would say, and you know, I love that all killer no filler type of stuff with only 6 episodes. So And then just quick shout out, I wanted to say, started to jump back into the Indiana Jones movies, kind of like I was doing with like Back to the Future and stuff, and watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. Fucking great movie, man. And then going into Temple of Doom, I can't even necessarily say that I've seen the other ones other than 1 and 4, unfortunately. So yeah,
Never seen any of them.
Me neither. Two things.
Oh, goodness me.
Two things I want to point out. One, I just realized that I don't think I like Harrison Ford as an actor. Just period.
God damn. Whoa.
And it's not like I don't hate him or anything. I think I realized that I just don't like his acting style. Like personally, I don't like Han Solo really. Not the character, but like him playing Han Solo. That's why.
Oh my God, Jared. I'm sorry. I just want you to know that I'm bottling a lot of stuff up right now because you're just like throwing daggers. And
yeah.
I just gotta let it go. I just gotta let it happen.
It's fine. There's people.
I'm not gonna try to derail this.
There's people who hate Jack Black for some reason. I'm like, I love Jack Black. The other thing I want to point out is you saying creepypasta reminded me of my friend who was like, what's the name of that thing you go to like to read weird theories about stuff that happened? He's all Rotten Spaghetti. Instead of creepypasta, he thought it was called Rotten Spaghetti.
Rotten Spaghetti.
I thought it was really funny.
Natural variation.
Yeah.
That'd be funny if like the staff members at Rotten Tomatoes were doing their own creepypastas on the site and just had their own little
Rotten Spaghetti. Yeah. That'd be funny. Oh man, that was so funny. I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like creepypasta, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's what it is." Is that everything, Jordan? Everything you played and watched?
Yeah, I'll say this: I go through stages, where I'm watching plenty of anime. Like I'm keeping up on stuff or whatever, keeping up on Walking Dead, though I was behind for some reason, don't even know how. But then I'll just go through times where I'm like, and during my free time, I'm like, you know what? I'd rather just like enjoy podcasts. There are stuff that I need to catch up on. Huber Syndrome, he was doing like these longer form ones for a little while, just a little bit back. So yeah, man, it's weird how like sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to get through Haunted Hill House or Daredevil or whatever anime series I'm going with at that point. And then sometimes I'm like, fuck it, I'm just gonna watch podcasts and like chill out, maybe listen to music where I'm not as actively trying to like go episode by episode with these shows.
Yeah. You speaking about being behind on Walking Dead. So about a season and a half ago, I have about 4 or 5 friends who love The Walking Dead, or at least love The Walking Dead. And I was the one in the group that was like, wow, this show's getting really bad. It's pretty bad, right? It was around the time we started the podcast. And they're like, no, you're just being a hater. It's still good. It's still good. As of like last week, me and only one other person still watched The Walking Dead. And I was the one that like didn't watch for like a whole season.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's one of those shows where it's weird that I'm just still with it at this point. But, I think it's my love of the comic that has come through now that the show's gotten so bad, and I did start reading the comic.
I think mine's just a spiteful relationship of me feeling like I've invested so much that I want to see the payoff. You know what I mean?
And that's what I was gonna say. Like to anybody who's not gotten into the show yet, go just like I say, go with Weeds season 1 through 3, and that shit is fucking dope.
Yeah,
Weeds dope. And then Walking Dead seasons 1 through fucking 5, and you're out, and that's a good ass fucking show, man.
Yeah.
There's certain shows, like if I could know that going into it, it's like Walking Dead 1 through 5. You're in and you're out, and like there's gonna be it's 16 episode seasons because it was kind of AMC during that time when it came about, but it's gonna be a lot of good shit. Mostly not this fucked up that this crap that we've been getting since the start of season 6.
I would say
just, like really got into the Alexandria stuff.
I would say the first 5 seasons feel like 10 seasons, but in a good way. Where like at that mid-season finale, going into the mid-season premiere, they tend to feel like 2 different seasons. You know what I mean? Because of the narrative through lines.
For the better seasons, yes. Yeah.
Anyways,
I think season 5 was Terminus, and after that's what I'm saying is like after Terminus, Runaway.
Yeah. I mean, I would say,
Yeah.
man, this latest episode, episode 5, I think has a lot of really great callbacks. If you've been a fan who have stuck around for as long as you have,
Yeah,
there's some really cool parallels.
If you're still in it, there's good episodes happening right now, but I can't necessarily say, yeah, dude, like season 6 through 8 is worth the slog because those aren't 10 episode seasons; those aren't 8 episodes.
Yeah.
So, oh shit, I'm sorry, but I have to give a shout out to one more thing. I'll be quick.
Okay.
House of fucking Cards final season, 8 episodes. That shit was fucking good, man. Even without Kevin Spacey, Robin Wright was killing it. You know, lots of different people on that show were killing it. I think that they were lucky the way that they ended season 5 without even knowing that this was the situation. And I found out that they had actually filmed some of the episodes of this season with Kevin Spacey before, this whole thing came about with him, which is crazy. But anyways, Greg Kinnear and Diane Lane, the new characters, are great. You know, there's bumps in the road, and there is some times where it's like, only 8 episodes compared to the longer, earlier seasons. It does kind of feel like packed in a little bit, but for the most part, I was very pleased with how they were able to recover the show and end it properly. So, just big shout out to them.
The first season is great. It's one of my favorite seasons of television. I really feel no need personally to go watch the rest of the seasons. I just love that first season of House of Cards. It's so good. And that's one of those things, too, of like, for me, somebody who didn't keep up with the show season to season, I don't really feel it's necessary going through the slog of that to see the resolution. You know what I mean? Kind of like the same thing with Walking Dead.
You might be on point, Jared, because this is a David Fincher executive produced show and kind of created with him. And it obviously even, to the end of season 6 has those vibes of David Fincher. But obviously he's off, doing his films.
Yeah.
So he only did, directed a few episodes, probably helped write a few episodes really in that first season. So you really got like the David Fincher touch and like the most David Fincher-esque version of kind of, a TV show like this. So
yeah. Let's hop into the news. So the first bit of news we have is some interesting sales numbers updates. So last week we talked about Red Dead and we talked about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I think, were the 2 games. Maybe something else. But we have some new updates in terms of sales. So Forza Horizon 4, life to date, has outsold Assassin's Creed Odyssey at retail in the UK. It's really surprising. Wow. Forza Horizon 4 is a console exclusive. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is not. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is considered one of the biggest franchises in terms of video games, at least in the Western world. I don't know how Assassin's Creed sells in Japan, but yeah, it's really crazy. This is kind of like the perfect storm for Forza Horizon 4, considering it takes place in the UK. British gamers tend to buy racing games at a pretty high rate, so it's just interesting considering Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a multi-plat game that's known to sell so well. But it is good news for Xbox, showing that Forza Horizon 4 is selling very well for them.
I'm telling you, man, this might not even sound like that big of a deal. PlayStation, you better watch your ass in Europe, man, because the reason that PlayStation has had a grip on Europe for so long has been the Gran Turismo games, and if they're hopping onto this Xbox Forza bandwagon like it seems like they are here in this situation, dude, you do not want to concede fucking Europe. Just don't let that happen, man.
Well, the cool thing is Forza Horizon 4 is developed by Playground, which is a UK-based developer, too.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. The other sales numbers, just as crazy, if not more. In its first 8 days, Red Dead Redemption 2 managed to sell a staggering 17 million copies worldwide.
Hot damn.
This means that it sold more in 8 days than Red Dead Redemption sold in 8 years.
17 million copies, my God. And let me just say, like, if another studio that was already pretty popular made a cowboy game this fucking good, it would not sell nearly as much. This is a GTA studio Rockstar bump, is what this is.
I think
it deserves. It is worth the attention. It is worth the sales because it is that fucking good. But like, why are 17 million people bought the fucking cowboy game over the weekend, but they couldn't get them to buy the Star Wars Battlefront 2 back in the day? Like, what? That's crazy, man.
Well, I think one other person that could contend, and it wouldn't be a straight 1-to-1 comparison in terms of the type of game, is if there was a new Fallout game that was Western inspired. I think that could contend and sell a lot, because Fallout, like Bethesda's Fallout games, sell a ton. But I do agree with you. Like a straight up Western game like this, it'd be hard to find another studio that could compete that would sell this many copies. You know what I mean?
I think that Bethesda would be second on that list, but still not even close to this level, obviously, because 17 million. What in how long was that?
8 days.
No fucking way. That's
absurd.
Insane.
Yeah. That's Call of Duty numbers.
That is. Yeah, that's the Rockstar fucking name being out there. People know that these are the GTA guys.
And that was in October too, man. They released earlier. Like we haven't even hit Thanksgiving in December, man.
Wait for fucking
Black
Christmas
Friday
on this bitch.
and Christmas. Yeah.
And then they re-release it. Like, whoa.
Oh man, when it comes to next,
everyone buys it again.
Jesus. Yeah. Imagine how I don't even want to think about it. It's going to be insane. The other thing that I want to touch on here, we mentioned Call of Duty, is that for the month of October, Call of Duty outsold Red Dead on PlayStation 4, which isn't too surprising because Call of Duty had been out, I think, like 10 days longer. But Red Dead Redemption 2's marketing is all done on PlayStation 4. So Call of Duty outselling Red Dead in October, it leads you to believe that Call of Duty will probably still be the best-selling game of the year, but who knows? Like you said, it came out towards the end of the month, so, I mean, it was, 5 days to, 15, 16, something like that? So who knows? We'll see what ends up happening, but that bet you have with Blessing is getting a little spicy there to see what happens by the end of the year.
I'm still alive.
Yeah,
I was discouraged when I first saw that 17 mil number, but... Yeah, then your little news piece there gave me some hope back. Especially Call of Duty, I think, at least for the next few months, should have... I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm just speaking ignorantly. Should have better legs because of the popularity of the Battle Royale mode, and that's kind of something that I would think, people are watching that, streaming and stuff, and and that feed sales. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
But at least Red Dead Online is I don't know when it's coming. Is it, this year?
When's what coming? Oh, the online? It comes out the end of this month.
Yeah.
November.
Oh, okay. Shoot. Damn.
So here's the thing, too, from my own personal experience with my friend group, is that the people who are going to buy Call of Duty tend to buy it, near the launch. Whereas with Red Dead 2 and with Grand Theft Auto 5, what happened is some people bought it, and then they heard other people having so much fun with it, they're like, hell yeah. And we've kind of seen that happen, considering GTA 5 is still in the NPD top, 15-10 every month since 2013. So, who's to say if Red Dead is going to outsell it for this year with the short amount of months? But we could see Red Dead having a longer tail than Call of Duty, but then again, Call of Duty sells like crazy forever. It's going to be an interesting battle for, I think, the next calendar year to the next just 12 months period to see what happens. Yeah, we're going to get into this. This is a very weird story, but I wanted to talk about it because this isn't something we normally see happen. So Ubisoft is censoring Rainbow Six Siege. This is from GameIndustry.biz by Rebecca Valentine, which is interesting. That's one of the first towns you run into in Red Dead Redemption 2, which is pretty cool. Anyways, Ubisoft recently announced a bevy of cosmetic changes coming to Rainbow Six Siege in preparation for the game's upcoming launch in Asian territories. These changes will be seen in every version of the game in order to maintain global consistency. Specific changes include the removal of skulls, gambling references, sexual content, and environmental blood to conform to content regulations in different countries. Some icons will be changed as well, including the melee icon, transforming it from a knife to a fist. Ubisoft reassures players that the changes will not affect gameplay whatsoever and will only be aesthetic. Now, obviously, the argument here is that, A, why are you changing it for global consistency when everyone has different values in terms of the content they want to see in games? And B, it's a little weird that you're removing environmental blood from a game that's predicated on you shooting other people with bullets.
You change an image.
Also stopping terrorist attacks.
Exactly.
Yeah. Changing an image from a knife to a fist in a game where you're shooting people with guns.
Hey, man, give that terrorist a good old swing right in the left hook, right in the jaw.
Well, and the funny thing is, I think everybody that is upset about this understands why they're doing it for the Asian territories. I think the frustration comes down to the global consistency thing, because Ubisoft is exchanging ease of update for, I guess, personal happiness with each territory. Because if you have global consistency, that means it makes their job easier, right? They don't have to worry about 6 different versions of the game. But people are saying, well, we want at least a different version. Like, this doesn't make sense why we're getting censored. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's very weird.
Really?
I just want to hear what you guys have to say.
It could be kind of 2 different versions of the game. You have one where you're able to toggle that stuff, and you have one where it's automatically turned off.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound that fucking hard to me. Because in the Assassin's Creed games, Ubisoft, you guys let me turn blood off, which is also fucking dumb.
A lot of games do that with blood.
Creed with a hidden blade, and it's like, oh, you stabbed him in the neck, but he's just not bleeding, so he's okay. Don't worry about it. He's just sleeping now. Now that you've touched the feather to his non-bloody neck, he's just sleeping. Which, hey, shout out to those scenes of the assassinations where you like confirm the kill in AC Origins. Those are actually really fucking cool and like way trippy. You know what I'm talking about, Jared, where it's like you go into Animus World and you're just talking to the guy that you already murdered. I don't get it, but
it reminds me of early Assassin's Creed when like you would assassinate somebody and kind of the world would get clouded around you, and you'd be having a specific conversation.
They've done it throughout the game.
And this is that on like acid. It's like you're going to this different realm. It's really cool. Yeah.
It's really weird, but anyways, back to the whole Ubisoft Rainbow Six Siege thing. I think that I gotta say this is very worrisome to me. This is along the line of, this is why they go to China in the Transformers movies.
Yep.
These bigger markets are influencing our media in ways that I'm not personally comfortable with, because some it's censorship, some it's like dumbing it down because they have different interests than us and they haven't been watching the same movies and the transformation of film over the past so many years, because I'm talking about China, for example.
Yeah.
They're like a communist country that only allows so many, let's say, American or Western films in every year, and so big goofy Transformers movies are the motherfucking shit to them, because they don't know about like really, really good shit that we've been watching all these years that has a little more substance, I think. And that apparently is coming through here as well, where it's just like there's more nuance. Yeah, it's a fucking game about terrorists where you're acting like you're not actually killing anybody or not actually, drawing blood or something. So it's goofy and dumb, and in some ways it is scary, because obviously Australia could never have this much influence, but trust me guys, we do not want to be adhering to the Australian entertainment gaming laws, because the way they censor games for Australia is fucking bonkers, dude. It's like they don't have any adults in the company, apparently, or not the company, the country. The government thinks that they're like, you can't play zombie games like that, it'll be too scary for you.
It's just weird because it comes down to resources, and Ubisoft can't argue that they don't have the resources to maintain different versions of the game.
They open 2,000 studios every
year. Yeah. It sucks that there's finally a black eye on Rainbow Six Siege and Ubisoft in general, because they've been doing so good for so long with keeping these games and having them have a long life. Like For Honor still has one of the highest player bases, which is crazy because no one ever talks about that game. Or, Wildlands and all the... It just sucks that there's finally something that's like, why? You know what I mean? It was bound to happen. It's just a very weird decision. Because it is such a violent game, you know what I mean? It's just weird. It's very weird.
This is fucking dumb. Like, and it really pisses me off. It's a resource thing, but like, I don't care. This is dumb, and I hate censorship more than a lot of things, probably more than most people. Yeah. So it freaks me out that it's gotten to the point where like it's, at least by their estimates, more financially viable to just give in to the censorship. You know what I mean? And now we're all subject to it. I don't play this game, so it doesn't affect me. But this is something I think that's worth like calling them out on. Like, that's dumb. It's worth it for you to make different versions if you want to make money over there.
Give people the choice.
This kind of thing to continue.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah,
the toggle thing, but also this whole global consistency bullshit. The global direction is moving in things being less censored. Like, think of just talk about TV shows that people are so into. They're getting less censored. I was actually, talking about Channel Zero, dude.
Especially as we stream more.
Yeah.
I swear to fucking God, other than actual dick and balls or nipples, you see pornography on TV. They're fucking hard. Like, Channel Zero, they were fucking the shit out of each other. Bent over a table. And she had a bra on, and you didn't see his dick, and that was it. But other than that, that's fucking porn.
Yeah.
And I remember watching Heroes back in the day, and Hayden Panettiere, there's this, like, vision scene, and Hayden Panettiere's head gets dragged across the hallway, bloody trail leaking out afterwards. I'm like,
I think
I remember
this
that.
stuff, that was NBC 10 years ago. This stuff is getting more and more graphic, and they're less worried about saying fuck and just showing people fucking, apparently, and especially when it's completely uncensored, like Netflix and HBO, which are very popular platforms that are doing these original content. These are the shows that people are talking about, and China's going to be watching House of Cards, but not any of the fucking parts. And
no.
None of the stabbing in Game of Thrones when they go on HBO. Or
Let me clarify. When they're talking about global consistency, they're not talking about making sure it appeals to everybody. It's global consistency in relation to the version of the game they're putting out. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit different there. So basically, they want global consistency in terms of we released literally the same game in every market, so we don't have to worry about updating 3 different versions of the game. Because if they make a map adjustment, then they have to do it in multiple different versions. So it's not necessarily global consistency in, like, everyone needs a... I don't know how I would specifically...
What I'm saying is it should be one version of the game, and if China or who the fuck ever can't... Australia just, pisses themselves over fucking blood and gore or sex or whatever, then they don't have to sell it in their country. And that... Yeah, I get that they're going to lose profits or whatever, but, like, China just started allowing consoles in the last, like, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like, it's a ridiculous situation.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you, but for me it'd be a different solution in that I think there should be 2 versions of the game. One for Asian territories, one for everyone else, and deal with having to update 2 games. You're Ubisoft. You have the resources. Like, to say you don't, I you know what I mean? Like you said, they open 200 studios every year. Like, I don't.
I hope all the MAGA bros over here, fucking boycott this shit just to make a point, and maybe they did something good for once.
They're not playing Rainbow Six Siege.
It's a weird statement.
They're playing PUBG.
That was an interesting statement.
This is one of the weirdest things I'll ever say.
Yeah.
Like you had some form of rage just hiding in you. You're like, I'm gonna light this on fire.
Like, Yves Guillemot has to say something about this eventually. You know what I mean? It's frustrating. Anyways, speaking of people who lead companies, we got a couple of directors leaving their positions. One that seems on not so great of terms, and the other one that just is, I think, is positive for the franchise and the person. So we're going to get into both of these. The first one is from IGN by Brian Bankhurst. Tabata resigns, most Final Fantasy 15 DLC canceled. So as of October 31st, 2018, shout out to Halloween, Hajime Tabata has resigned from Luminous Productions, which is a studio he started about, I think, like 4 years ago or something like that, at Square Enix, and also has resigned from Square Enix, the Square Enix group itself. This was announced during a special Final Fantasy 15 presentation, where it was also revealed that 3 of the 4 upcoming pieces of DLC were canceled.
A special presentation, huh?
Yeah. For reference, Tabata took over Final Fantasy 15 in 2013 when Tetsuya Nomura shifted over to focus on Kingdom Hearts 3. Prior to Final Fantasy 15, Tabata directed Crisis Core Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy Type 0. And he's been at Square Enix for a while. Episode Arden, which is the one of the 4 DLC that's going to be released, is going to be coming out March of 2019. And the other 3, that being Episode Noctis, Episode Arania, and Episode Luna Freya, which I think is a pretty cool name, are now officially canceled. Yeah, it's very weird. For me personally,
it's a pretty cool name.
It is Luna Freya, Luna Moon, and then Freya.
No, just the way you said that. Which, by the way, that's a dope ass name.
Yeah, by the way. Personally, my take on this is I think it's positive considering the trouble Final Fantasy has been in for what seems like the better part of my life, of them just not being able to release games in a timely manner, them not understanding AAA game development in the modern era. I just think that changing as much leadership as you can there will be better for the franchise. Those who don't know, Tabata is actually the person at Square Enix who was saying that he wanted them to release a game. He wanted the model where you release a ton of DLC, and even the games you just release them episodically. Like, he was the one that felt that you didn't need to release a whole game anymore, which is evident by Final Fantasy 15. Easy jab. I think it's better.
I mean, he's kind of getting shit on in this situation, but he kind of saved the game. You know, he kind of got it.
Exactly.
Fucking go after all this time.
I want to know what you guys think about the situation, and also how weird is that the director stepping down, Tabata stepping down, means that the DLC is canceled, because, you know, they could bring in somebody else to finish the DLC. They have been working on it. What do you think them canceling that DLC means for Square Enix and Final Fantasy as well?
My guess, he was really pushing this DLC and wanted it to happen, and they weren't into it. Probably financially, it just probably wasn't projected to make enough money, and you know what I mean. So that's why I think they scrapped the idea ultimately. We're like okay, like, he's gone, but at least we don't have to do this DLC anymore. And he had different ideas and probably got to go do his own thing and make a studio or whatever else he's gonna do. But I think that's probably what it is. With the DLC, like you guys already mentioned, he was always on this, you know, episodic idea, and probably, I'm guessing, he wanted this DLC to happen in a certain way, and it's so long after the fact. And maybe they wanted him to start making Final Fantasy 16, and he just like, no, whatever.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
Yeah, we don't know what happened and why he resigned, but that's actually a good point. Is maybe they wanted them to already start working on Final Fantasy 16, and he's like, no, I have this idea. I want to release these episodic pieces of DLC. Yeah. What about you, Jordan? What do you think? What's your take?
Make no mistake, boys. Square Enix is a hot fucking mess, because they've got some cool shit in Final Fantasy. They make cool games, and Octopath Traveler's expensive but cool, and there's cool shit there. But I'll tell you what, they are a hot fucking mess. What are they gonna do about this 7 remake? You know, they're putting out all these games on Switch, but not all the games on Switch. It's so weird, man. You know, they still got 14 going. They were going so fucking hard on 15, and like 2 seasons of DLC packs. So imagine for Spider-Man, they did this 3-pack thing of The City That Never Sleeps, and then they did a whole other pack, but even more than that, because there's the online stuff, and there's like 4 packs per season. So it's like, I just can't even imagine that if I was a developer or anyone that worked at Square Enix, or now it does seem like this is a finality for this game. So it's like, well, yeah, once this final DLC pack comes out, you could kind of get into it and not have to worry about it changing 8 more fucking times before you get to the end of it. Because talk about a hot mess, just this game in general. Obviously, we know the whole story of the 100-year development cycle, and it changing from being part of this universe with 13 and Type 0 to being its own 15 game. And then you have the whole just situation in general where, like, Jared, do you remember exactly what it was when it came out, and there was one specific story chapter that people were tearing apart?
13.
And
I think it was
chapter
13.
13, whatever the fuck it was. People know what I'm talking about. And it's like, people tore this thing a new asshole, and then they're like, alright, well, now that you guys have all beat the story, we just patched it and changed chapter 13 or whatever the fuck it is. And they've been doing things like this all the time. And they've turned it into an extended universe, kind of like they have with 7, where it's got its own anime stuff. And there's definitely, I've watched videos on this. Some of my YouTubers that I watch have talked about it. They're really passionate about JRPGs and Final Fantasy specifically. And so hearing them say, it's missing these gaps that are in the movies or in the anime or whatever, and those need to be explained in the game. And there's just, like I said, man, simplest way to put it, it's a hot fucking mess. I mean, can you imagine if Insomniac was like, oh yeah, you guys didn't like chapter 7 of the story in Spider-Man? Well, now that you guys have all beaten it, we just changed it, What in the fuck?
This reminds me a lot of Konami, where it's you have somebody who's in lead of a game at a Japanese studio and they leave, and the game that they were lead on is now incomplete. As good as Metal Gear Solid 5 was, people talk about how that game was incomplete. You know what I mean? So
this game's like been completed, and then they like started.
Yeah.
It's almost like they basically did Final Fantasy 15-2 with DLC. Is kind of how they were almost doing it, and so
it sounds like that was Tabata's plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so after completing it and then basically like restarting it again, you've now left it in an incomplete state. So that is weird.
You want to hear you were talking about Square Enix. You want to hear my hot take on Square Enix?
Do it.
I think that they're so invested in the Marvel license because they understand how well that can pay off. I think that the next Tomb Raider game we see will not be published or owned by Square Enix. I think they're going to sell off that license.
Hitman and shit like that, you know.
Yeah.
Dude, I know I've talked about how much I'd like to see more collaborations between the East and the West, specifically America and Japan with our entertainment stuff. I know a lot of people, maybe even you guys wouldn't like it, but God, it'd be cool if we could get some stuff where it's like Final Fantasy looking Avengers stuff. Like,
have you seen the
would
figures?
You guys hate that? Yeah, that's okay. So I didn't want to say because people get freaked out. What are these called? There's
First Four
cool
or
shit.
something.
No. It's the something Kai. And Nomura's designed a bunch of them. And so they like have Batman and shit. They have Captain America. They have Spider-Man. And they just look like Final Fantasy versions of themselves. And I think it's really cool. Not as, I want this version as the Batman that's in the Batman comic book by DC.
Play Arts Kai,
thank you. And they originally come out as super expensive detailed figures. But I think it's cool to have like a anime-looking ass Joker or Catwoman or Batman.
To answer your question, I would love
as alternative versions, not as like the main version.
If you're like
6 universe, if you will.
Yeah, so if you're like, okay, Avengers game comes out, it's like a Destiny-like or whatever it is, but it's a good game, and there's skins in the game, and some of those skins are those versions. Hell yes, with different abilities or whatever.
I'm saying like a Final Fantasy level game, like AAA game. This is maybe down the road a little bit.
As long as a regular
fantasy game looking game with that like pristine, beautiful 3D anime characters, and it's a world. It's about the fucking world tree or the crystal that they gotta save with their 4 people party, and then they do the Avengers like that. That'd be fucking cool. Like, just make it. I don't know. Just make it fucking super anime Japanese. Can I be down? Can I have a Batman Ninja video game for the Avengers?
I'd be down with that as long as we got the original type of Avengers stuff first. Yeah,
absolutely,
super
down. Yeah, because we don't have like a Avengers Arkham universe. We only have the Spider-Man game at this point. So yeah, we do need those mainstays.
So though Tabata leaving looks like it's good news for Final Fantasy as a franchise, we assume this thing that's leaving, I think it's better all around. So GameIndustry.biz. This is also Rebecca Valentine. Shout out to that Red Dead City that I mentioned earlier.
Oh my goodness.
Masuda
it's a dope name, by the way. Rebecca Valentine. That's a cool name.
And she spells it K-A-H, which is like a very weird way to spell Rebecca, but it's cool.
That's a cool name to spell your name. That's a cool name to spell it.
So Masuda is likely stepping down as Pokemon director. So if you're not familiar, in an interview on the Pokemon's own website, Junichi Masuda, who's a longtime series director and composer, me interjecting here, he's also responsible for the Masuda method, which is a way of hatching shiny Pokemon in the game. That's like next level nerd Pokemon stuff. Yeah, the Masuda method is his. He will be stepping away from directing after the release of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. He said he would like to see the series handed off to a new group of leaders and creators, and this is his exact quote. He went on to say, but at the same time, it's important to have the younger generation at Game Freak take over their development of Pokemon as a series. I do believe this will probably be, in terms of the main Pokemon RPGs, the last time I work as the director. So this is cool and this is great. You don't really see this a whole lot where this older person understands that his time is done and he wants to see new, refreshing takes on the series that he's been working on. If you're not familiar, the first game that he was a director on was Silver and Gold, which is for a lot of people considered the best Pokemon games. And he's been composing for a very long time. Most of a lot of the Pokemon music is pretty iconic. Like when you hear it, it's really great.
Fuck yeah, dude. You're talking about going to Valentine and Red Dead. There's so many different little cities and towns in Pokemon, and you just hear that music when you walk in. It's
Lavender Town, saddest track ever. Reminds you completely of that town. It's really good in the best way possible. I'm happy about this. Obviously, I think I've kept up with Pokemon more than both of you guys, but I know you guys have interest in it. For me, this is exciting because though I've enjoyed all of the Pokemon games, there hasn't been a huge evolution, as ironic as that statement is, considering the world of Pokemon is all about evolution. And I do think that has to do with a lot of the same leadership being in place. And if you have something that's working and it sells the way Pokemon does, you kind of are worried to change stuff because, like, if it's not broken, why fix it? You know what I mean? And I do think they've been hesitant to evolve and go to new places. And I think with newer leadership, whether that be people who have been waiting in the wings that are super talented or just a younger generation, like Masuda said, I'm really excited for this. And this clarifies and means that Pokemon for Switch is not directed by him, which is kind of worrisome, but I think in a good way, because I do think that lends opportunity towards something refreshing. What do you guys think about this?
Well, that's what I want to ask you about, Jared, as our resident Pokemon guy. I have more love for the classic series, and you have been more just good about,
throughout,
dedicating time throughout. There's games I've skipped. There's, Sun I couldn't necessarily get into. I need those gym battles, man. First of all, I got a couple questions for you, but will there be gym battles? And second of all, this Switch game of 2019, not the Eevee and Pikachu game, the Let's Go games, is it going to be kind of, in a sense, revolutionary, or is it going to just be, their formula that they've been doing translated onto Switch?
Okay, so first off, I want to say Sun and Moon were not directed by Masuda, so that's probably why there weren't gym battles. You know what I mean? He didn't direct Sun and Moon.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And you were cool with there not being gym battles, correct?
I wouldn't say cool. I was okay with...
you were cooler with it than I was. I was almost a hard out because of that, and I'm glad I wasn't, but I still think it's almost, in a sense, I feel like, it's definitely more a real game than... It's a mainline game. It's not like a Let's Go Eevee or a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, but I'm like, it just doesn't, to me, technically feel like a fucking mainline Pokemon if I'm not, going to all these goddamn gyms and getting these fucking badges, man. So.
And that's the interesting thing is because, like, culturally, I think it fits in with Hawaii and the way that culture handles things.
I did like that.
But
vibe.
in terms of Pokemon, yeah, I agree. One of your questions: will there be gym battles? I would bet my life savings, all $10 of it, that there will be gym battles in this next game, because this is going to be the first game on a new piece of hardware. This Pokemon game is going to be the one that they released that Nintendo wants to be the console seller. You know what I mean? And I think because of that, they wanted to appeal to people, and not having gym battles would alienate a lot of people. That leads me into Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which I think is also alienating a lot of people. Obviously, there's going to be the diehard Pokemon fans that are blind with rage, and though they don't like anything about it, they're going to buy it anyways. I'm not that type of person. I am not buying Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. To answer your question, I don't think this is revolutionary or something that we could see go into new games. I think Let's Go is going to be its own sub franchise, kind of like the mystery dungeon games and stuff like that. And this game is pretty much a step back because it has so many of the Pokemon Go mechanics in it that it's watered down in a lot of ways. Yeah, so I don't think...
But as far as 2019 Pokemon, is that going to be revolutionary, or is that going to be a translation of Black and White and Sun and Moon before?
So, if I'm being honest, I think this next game, with Masuda's announcement barely coming this year, I do think that this next one will be what we expect it to be with some minor enhancements, I think the second Pokemon Game and Switch will be the one where we could possibly see something really revolutionary or crazy, right, or game changing.
Okay.
I think this one's.
Think this is going to be the motherfucking shit coming up in 2019.
I think it'll have enough improvements to be like, oh, that's cool, but it won't be a crazy evolution of the series. Yeah,
definitely worth playing, but maybe Dom won't play it because you're not super into Pokemon, for example, but it'll be worth it.
I think, Jared, that sounds logical.
Yeah.
I think the big thing that the 2019 game will do or enhance is the graphics, right? Like, it'll be like way more 3D. I don't even know how to describe it than the previous ones.
A lot better.
Yeah, so it'll probably look like those, but even more detail, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And then obviously all the deep mechanics that Pokemon games normally have and stuff.
Honestly, I'm not expecting a whole lot from the one next year in terms of like open world or anything crazy like that. The one thing that's like my big want more than anything is difficulty scaling. Like, I really want there to be either difficulty settings or better scaling in the game to difficulty. I think that's one of the biggest crutches for Pokemon is that they've never really been difficult. That bothers me more than them necessarily evolving to something grander. I still want that, but I do think Nintendo has to step back in the Pokemon company, because obviously Nintendo doesn't really have much to say over this, is that they have to realize that their demographic just isn't kids under 15. A lot of people our age buy Pokemon, and I do think it is in their best interest to have some kind of difficulty setting. Maybe have it set as easy,
it's
right?
It's so weird, man.
Have it set
you can make the game harder for yourself, but why can't you just choose an option? That's fucking crazy. Well, they can be very. That is another reason that I don't finish a lot of them, is because it's just so fucking easy a lot of times. If you're a seasoned, Pokemon trainer, then you just get in the groove and you know how to like beat the shit out of people.
Well, playing for as long as I do, I know type advantages, so like I make sure.
That type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I don't really do that with the starter. I'm like, what starter do I like the most, and then I base the rest of my team around that. So like, if I get a fire starter, I know I eventually have to get a water Pokemon to balance out my team, and yada yada yada. Yeah, I do. I think that's the biggest thing for me is I want it to. It can be set to super easy at default, but let me have the option of like setting it to more difficult. And I agree with Dom. I think the biggest step we're going to see in terms of evolution for Pokemon is going to be graphics. I think the camera angle is going to be slightly different. I think it's going to be more over the head shoulder-ish area, like a weird isometric, but a little bit more zoomed in. Yeah. And I do think there's going to be more visual fidelity. So I do think it'll have even more detail than Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. I'm excited for next year's game, but I don't think it's the revolution people are expecting or wanting. But Masuda stepping down, going back to the news story, I think does put us in that direction, and that's what I'm excited about. That being said, if I'm going to play devil's advocate, like I mentioned earlier, Sun and Moon wasn't directed by him, and that introduced something you didn't like, which was no gym battles. So that's the give and take you get with somebody coming in who hasn't been doing it all the time, is with these new ideas. That doesn't mean they're all going to be ideas you like. And that's the thing we have to think about is this next game isn't directed by Masuda, so it's gonna have one new thing that's like, whoa, that's crazy. Now is that gonna be good or is that gonna be alienating? Yep. And that's gonna be the big question. And we'll see. I think that does it for this week's show, episode 119. Let's talk about what we're gonna be playing. Pretty easy answer for me, Red Dead. And I'm pretty sure the Spyro Reignited trilogy comes out. So that and Red Dead.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I can't wait. Super excited. Real quick, apparently PlayStation Classic is reviewing as well as we thought it was. It just doesn't have the library to justify the $100 purchase or like whatever it is, $90 purchase. Yeah.
Such a weird thing to review. Like, each of those games have their own reviews. That's really what, you know?
Yeah, but it's like it's like reviewing a smartphone though. It's a product you buy, you know what I mean? But I do agree with you. It's like it's a product that has other products that are already reviewed.
Yeah,
it's very weird.
Well, like you buy a smartphone and you could review the phone, but then people review individual apps too, so.
Yeah, but on a phone you can choose to download good or bad apps. This one, it's like all of the apps are already there no matter what.
That does suck.
A smartphone is just infinitely more variable, even in its hardware, right? Where this is like, it's a little machine that's going to emulate these exact games.
Why don't they just make it cheaper with 10 games that they'll at least have a couple of good ones in there, and then just let you buy decent amount, for how much you're gonna
Why don't they just
pay for these, but just let you buy, like, have its own little store.
You know what's dumb? Why don't they put the memory card slots that are proprietary, listen real quick, and they just sell expansion packs that are on the memory card? And if you want, like, these setting, like the JRPG
we could
expansion...
go on for days about what the fuck they could do. I mean, there's a lot of backwards ass shit going
we'll probably
on. Dude, the biggest miss was on the Nintendo ones. Like, why not resell those games individually as carts? How cool would that be?
Exactly.
Expensive, but cool.
Exactly. And so Red Dead and Spyro Reignited trilogy, that's pretty much it. I started the first episode of Sabrina, but then I had to do something. It's not that I didn't like it, Jordan, but I need to get back to watching it. I actually enjoyed as much as I've seen.
I was just going to say, I've given a lot of shout-outs to Netflix this Halloween season for the stuff that they were putting out. But I will say, I know it's tough to schedule all this shit, but having Haunting of Hill House earlier on in the month and, being able to come back to it, because it is a heavy fucking series, man. And being able to take a couple days away from it and then come back and finish it before Halloween versus Sabrina coming out like just a couple days before Halloween. And I realize it's 10 episodes and people love binging stuff, but I also realize that not everyone fucking watches shit that way. And so it does kind of lose its luster where it's like, yeah, I watched the first episode before Halloween, and I love watching horror stuff all year round, but still it's like
the vibe. I get it.
I would like to see, why wouldn't you just front load this stuff since you are putting out all the episodes at once? I would front load that month and even maybe late September with Halloween stuff, and then leading up to and even having a Halloween party with some nerdy friends who want to watch that show on the 31st or something like that.
Yeah,
so who knows? But
real quick,
yeah, it's weird type of appeal thing there.
We're going really long, so real quick, the other thing, Overlord comes out this weekend, which is the J.J. Abrams produced Nazi zombie movie. It's pretty much.
Where is that coming out?
Netflix.
Gotcha.
Comes out tomorrow, the 9th. The day we're recording is 8th.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
So it'll be out this evening at midnight.
Yeah.
I think they do Eastern time, or it's 1 a.m. here. I don't fucking know. Sorry.
No problem. What are you guys going to be playing?
Hyper Light Drifter.
So,
hell yeah.
Hyper Light Drifter.
There we go, Dom.
Call of Duty Black Ops 3.
Hey, if you guys want some extra credit,
wow,
get out there and watch the Indiana Jones trilogy. Check it out.
No, not gonna do that.
This is, I'm like, it's like, I think Harrison Ford is a shitty actor, and I don't want to watch Indiana Jones, and I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here. Like, most people would be on this podcast like, what?
Dom's not saying he doesn't like Harrison Ford. He just doesn't want to watch Indiana Jones. I'm the one that's
I know. It's like, I don't know, dude. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Dom, the original film, is a fantastic movie.
I'm not going to watch it.
Fantastic movie.
I'm not going to watch Titans. I'm not going to do it. What are you going to do, Jordan?
I'm going to cry because you're just slashing me to pieces here. I am going to continue watching Titans, Tom, because I think that Starfire is fucking dope in that show, and I like that part. So I'm going to watch it for that. And just because I really like DC stuff in general, and I'm cool with different takes. And I think I'm also going to watch the rest of the Indiana Jones trilogy. And then I guess I'm going to rewatch the fourth one. But the original trilogy is truly masterpiece filmmaking. If nothing else, Raiders of the Lost Ark is a fantastic film. And so I'm enjoying that. And I've started Temple of Doom is the second one, but haven't finished it. It's definitely not on the level of Raiders, and it is a lot goofier so far. Some kind of campy stuff, but it's cool shit, and it is definitely pulpy, and I am enjoying kind of looking at it from the perspective of like roots of Uncharted or even Tomb Raider type stuff, but especially a lot of Uncharted stuff is in here. So there's that. As far as playing stuff, I'll certainly be playing more Red Dead. I kind of mentioned earlier I've got some Switch games I'd like to be playing. But also kind of mentioned earlier that Red Dead is one that kind of really absorbs, a very absorbing game. So I do kind of like playing that with a focus sometimes, not hopping around as much as I usually do. So yeah, I think that's about it.
Awesome. It's going to be a good week for all of us. I can't wait to hop into Red Dead again, man. That game is so much to intake.
So now you're in. Even though you've got definitely your list of complaints, you're still just settling in and enjoying it.
Yeah, it's very, like I said earlier, it's very interesting to me because I'm not 100% sold on it being like game of the year for me or it being my favorite game or whatever, but I'm interested to see where the path takes me. Yeah, that's it for episode 119. We'll be back next week with episode 120. Thank you guys for listening. If you can, please subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit the like button. Smash that notification bell. Every time I say that, I think of like those annoying YouTubers. Oh, it's awful. Anyways, if you can, please follow us on iTunes as well. Rate us. It definitely helps the show. You can find us on Twitter at CTRLINT. That's Controlled Interest abbreviated. Slowing myself down. You can find me at Jared _. You can find Jordan
Relax, Jared.
You can find Jordan at Melomotus, and you can find Dom at Dom's Oreos. That's pretty much it, guys. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye.